rivers of Babylon. Yeah, we sat down and we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Hallelujah, hallelujah. Blessed be the name of the Creator, the host of our, thanking Him for life, food, clothing, and shelter, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Thanking the Creator of heaven and earth for all things and everything. As we approach on this day, the Shavuot, we pray that the Most High God will cause us to have a beautiful season, a beautiful time. As this is pre-recorded, so this is right before Shavuot, so by the time you look at this, Shavuot would have passed for us who are observing it during this time. We pray that the Most High God will bless us all and cause us all to have had a beautiful holy feast day, and praying that the Most High God will festival, and praying that the Most High God will continue to bless us with the endeavors of our minds that we desire in righteousness. My name is Uzziah Lewy, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH, CHOKMAH, located in the Red Hood section of Brooklyn, New York, giving all honor, glory, and praise to the Most High God, King of the universe, for allowing us to be here once again, waking us up in the morning and allowing us to praise His high and holy name. He is God and God alone, and besides Him there is no other. There is no king, there is no savior, and to Him and Him alone do we give praise. Hallelujah. So thank you the Most High God today, and we're going to move straight ahead with the lesson for the day, and I'm going to pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, Nasik Zurishaddai Ben Yehudah, who will be going through the portion of Bamidbar. Nasik, how are you today?
All right. Not bad. Just a little colder than normal. But thank God. First of all, I give praise to the Supreme Intelligent Universe, God, my forefathers, God, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, to respect the platform on the D.C.B channel platform. Spiritual leader, Chief Prince in the area of Saskat, to the host, Chief Uzael, to the Prince's Chief brothers and sisters, Kohanim, Rabbinate, the Maureen, and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the time of my forefathers. Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to start off with Adonai Septadi Takufia Gitia Theaka. Oh Lord, I'm down on the lips, my mouth should declare praise. Well, as you can tell, I'm still up in the apple. You know what I mean? I thought it should be kind of right now, but you got these good days and up and cold days. But nevertheless, we're going to enter in another section on Sidra, and we left off finishing the third book of the Chumash, or what generically is called the Torah. We finished off Leviticus, and one of the interesting things in Leviticus, like I had to point out, which I didn't get a chance to say last time, was when it mentions all those 49 different curses that we will encounter, which basically half of what you were reading in Kitabo, when in Deuteronomy 28th chapter. So, which is 98 in that chapter. But they're more severe, even though there's less numbers, there's more severity in Leviticus. And what is the assurance that even though we go through all those particular curses, one of the things I didn't get a chance to bring out was that the enumeration of the patriarchs. They say that, once we change, in spite of ourselves, reach out to Him, that He remember His covenant with Yaakov. He remembers His covenant with Isaac, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham. Now, one of the things that's unique is that he normally would say Abraham's the first one to make a covenant with God and, have a covenant with God. Then it was Isaac. Then it was Jacob. Why the reverse order? And saying, remembering Jacob first, and then remember Isaac, and then remembering Abraham. Well, Abraham himself come from Ur of the Chaldeans. He's told to separate from family and go to a foreign country. He's told that he will be blessed. He told that he would be actually an icon of success by doing this and going to a land which God should show him and showing his faith. All the things, the negativity of severing family ties, moving nomadic, not getting to know people too long, not having a place to really say, I'm setting my roots down. It's that most people don't have the luxury of comrades, long-term relationships, fame, riches, and trust, where Abraham was guaranteed everything would be all right. He was guaranteed a successful mission by going through some things that seem unsuccessful. Well, and as an average, and to say separate from your family, you say, well, you don't choose your family, but God chose him to separate himself from his family, for a particular mission. Now, when we say separate from family, so I don't want people to get the thing, well, I'm following this God and this way of life, so I don't have anything to do with my family. Abraham was on a unique mission because he was on a worldwide mission. And so the worldwide mission was bigger than his immediate family. So, so hence he wasn't the most important in this case when we reading about the Tokaka, the admonishments. Then Isaac, he was told in the time of a famine, don't go anywhere. You're going to be blessed 100-fold. And he was blessed 100-fold in the land, So during the time of famine, when everybody have hard times, Isaac was born and raised in the land of his nativity. Abraham had to leave the land of his nativity. Isaac was born and raised in the land of his nativity and died in the land of his nativity. So that Canaan land was home for Isaac. Now we look at Yaakov. And Yaakov himself, born in the land, had to run out the land. One, under pretense of looking for a wife, but also fleeing oppression from his brother. The threat of his brother going to slay him. So he leaves and goes through an exile. And when he goes through an exile, then while in exile, he worked for his uncle, who became his father-in-law. 20 years of hard labor, not easy times. We read about it that it wasn't a vacation for Yaakov. It was hard labor that he underwent. And then after the situation got really bad and dire, and he seen that his brother-in-laws spoke ill of him, and he seen the expression on his father-in-law's face, he recognized, it ain't the same. But even then, he waited, and God told him, you need to go back home. The Creator only speak to you. Why not? If you're worried about Esau, you made a contract and a prayer to the Most High when you had your dream. But anyway, God took you from a place when you realize sometimes that's not even good for you. And so he comes back into the land. After he come back into the land, then he had other issues coming on. Lose the wife that he really wanted in his life right away. And then after he lose the wife that he wanted right away, then he goes, when he loses his son, Joseph. And then after he lost his son, Joseph, then he mourned for, and refused to be comforted. Then finally, when he heard that his son was alive, and Joseph sent for him in Egypt, wanted him to lead the country again. This is Jacob's native land where he's born. The children, all the children that Yaakov had was not native to the land except for Benjamin. He's the only one that was actually native to the land of Canaan. All the other children that Yaakov had was conceived outside the land. So now Yaakov, with the permission of God, was allowed and started the exile into Egypt. So now he goes back in exile. And then after he goes back in exile, God had told him that he's going to die in exile, but his body will be brought back to his native land. So that was special in that sense. And the difference is when you make comparisons, Abraham born in Ur, the Chaldean, from that area, he dies. Even though he went into Egypt for a moment and he got thrust out, he dies in Canaan land, which be a bond between him and the Creator and the descendants of Abraham, that particular land, the parcel land. So Yitzchak, Isaac, born in his native land, never left the native land and died in his native land. The most ideal sort of speak of, where Yaakov, he the one was able to accomplish things that his predecessors couldn't. All Abraham's children then continue to serve the Creator. All of Isaac's children, which was only 2, then continue to serve the Creator. Abraham has 8 sons that we read about, 1 by Hagar, 1 by his wife Sarah, and 6 by Keturah. So Isaac only had 2 sons, and Esau didn't continue to serve in the capacity of the God, of Abraham, the God of Abraham. And so Jacob had 12, and Jacob, all 12 sons, with their ups and downs and the evil and things that went within the family, they all continue to serve the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So this is an accomplishment that all the patriarchs had went through, and therefore he accomplished more because he had Abraham as his teacher, the master teacher. He had his father as his teacher, and he learned from experience, and God preserved him throughout his trials and tribulations. So therefore, he made one of the greatest accomplishments. So when we read all those hard admonishments in Leviticus, closing out that book of Leviticus, we find that Jacob is the first one to be remembered because of what he actually went through. Fewer days and many troubles, and still was able to succeed. So that's one of the explanations I gave on the order. And I neglected to say Kazak when you could say, be strong, I'll make one another strong for that. So now in the book of Bamidbar, which is literally, and it means, in the desert or in the wilderness. So that's the term that's here. But the original name was Kumash Pekudim, which is, the uh, actually Kumash is like fifth numberings. So we're getting to that, the fifth counties, and that's what they original name for. So now there's a lot of numbers, and a lot of people tend to gloss over it, but you say, okay, we ain't talking about a lot of laws of observance in this particular portion about Mikvah. We're talking about a lot of numbers. So why would the numbers, what can we learn from these numbers? What would be the purpose of these numbers? One thing, you learn to count. That's definitely. But we've been counting, those of us that have been observing and anticipating the next holy day from Pesach, we are told to count. And we're told to count, for 7 weeks, and then on the 50th day is the day of Shavuot. So we're told to count 7 weeks, but we're told to count the weeks by days first. So you start off with, the Omer, first Omer, second Omer, third day of the Omer. So we're told to count on each day, and then we're told to count by weeks. And we know you must count it for yourself. You can't let anybody else count it. And not only we count those 49, in relation to the 49 curses that we talk about coming after, and they always come around that time when we're doing counting, and as well as the sabbatical year. And that's the only sidra that comes up, like I mentioned last time, while we actually are counting and observing us a particular time is the sabbatical year. Now, what's interesting is, that I find that, I like to share now, is that while we're doing this particular counting, and as I mentioned before, we're supposed to try to uplift our spiritual consciousness, our emotions. We try to get better, spiritually, emulating, 7 virtues, and, and coupling them with each other, the other virtues, well, basically 5 major virtues, and coupling them, with the other attributes of the Sephiros, which means, the numerous emanations. Similar to the word that's used for numbers. So now we open up in this book, and we learn a lot of things in this book besides just numbers as we go into the book of Numbers. I'm going to try to point out a few things as we go through. It says in the book of in this particular portion of Bamidbar, starts from the first chapter, and it's pretty long, but I'm not going to, belabor y'all with a lot. I'm just going to highlight certain points, but it's one of the long sidros. So it comes from the first chapter and goes all the way to the end. All the way to the end of the 7th chapter, the book of excuse me. Let me not. I mean, all the way into the end of the 4th chapter, 17th verse. 17th verse, 20th verse. So from the first chapter of Numbers to 4 and 20, all right, in the Masoretic text, all right, that will cover that particular portion of Numbers. All right, so now, Bamidbar, like I said, it means in the desert and in the wilderness. But it also has the root of, in speaking, medaber, if I say I'm speaking, I say I'm medaber. I'm speaking, but midbar, and then they got the word dover, which is to speak, and speak with intensity, with some force. So, and there's a lot of talk and a lot of action went on in this particular portion here. And as I was mentioned before in one of my talks about the 5 different offerings that's enumerated in the book of Leviticus, this one here represent the most, pertinent of the offerings, which is the guilt offering, sin, the real guilt offering. We're guilty of a lot of stuff here. A lot of stuff go on in the wilderness. But let me just start off with, and the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tent of meeting, on the first day of the 2nd month, in the 2nd year, after they were come out of the land of Egypt, saying, Take ye the sum of all the congregation of the children of Israel, by their families, by their father's house, according to the number of their of names, every male by their polls, from 20 years old and upward, and all that are able to go forth to war in Israel. Ye shall number them by their hosts, even thou and Aharon. All right. A couple of things is interesting here. That one, this ain't the first time we've been counted. We was counted already when we left Egypt collectively, and they said 600,000 men of war. All right. We was counted already after the sin of the golden calf, which is basically, give or take, maybe about 8 months more prior to that, 8 months more prior to this particular time. And now we're going to be counted again in the 2nd year, in the 2nd month, on Rosh Chodesh, which is the first day of that month. Yah. So I just want to highlight some of the things that transpire, because as we're going to read other parts of Numbers later on, we're going to find out that the chronological order is not set, but and it's put here for a reason. Why it's out of chronological order is to emphasize certain points in time, and give us some food for thought in it. So we know already, and we had read already, that way back that the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was erected, operating on Rosh Chodesh in the 2nd year, on the first day of the month of Aviv. So that's the same year we're talking about now. So we know also that not only was the tabernacle erected already at that point in time, when we talk about taking this census, it's a month later after the tabernacle was already functioning. We know also that on that same day that tabernacle was set up, yet Yehudah had to make his dedication, the tribe of Yehudah, which we're going to read about later on, and also in another portion of the book of Numbers, and also we already know. And on the 8th day, which was the Rosh Chodesh, the same day as the Rosh Chodesh of the consecration, that Nadab and Abihu was slain by fire by the Creator, for they offered strange fire. So we read about all that going on. And now we also went to each prince making their dedication on their day, which I'm going to speak on later on again, is that you find that not only each prince made his dedication on that particular day, but you find also that 2 days after the last prince of the tribe made an offering for the dedication, that we into our first Pesach. So now you also found out things about, certain people couldn't keep the Passover because they was defiled by the dead body of a man. So in the second month of Iyah, you had also, which would be coming, 13 days after this particular day that we talk about the census, is Pesach Sheni. So there's a lot of history going on at this time. When we take our time and make the connections to this. But now, when you're going to talk about take a count, we took a general count coming out of Egypt, collective. And we were counting by households. You just say, how many guys, pretty much 20 years old and upward. Now, when we came out of Egypt, mind you, it didn't say 20 years and upward. We learned that that's how they counted later. With the half shekel. That's how they performed the count. But when we came out of Egypt, we don't know how. It's not specified to say, well, we're gonna count all those 20 years old and upward. In that sense, it doesn't specify clearly like that. Also, it don't tell you about the half shekel. When they make that other count. Okay, now when it comes to the scent of the golden calf, all right, another count is taken. But the count there that's taken is, is a general count. And when they talk about a general count there, they don't give you that same information, about 20 years old and upward. We don't find that exactly there. We learned that later. So we learned a lot of information much later in the scripture, and we understand certain things, and certain things was omitted. So now we pick up that particular thing later, and when they did that next count after the sin of the golden calf, we didn't have a Mishkan. We haven't even started, wasn't even commissioned to start building the Mishkan, because Moses is busy trying to pray and atone for our sin of the golden calf. And then so now when we come back and they make that count after the sin of the golden calf, that's a sign of forgiven. But how the count was actually done is not really clear. We only get an idea of it's clear when we get into the different things about concerning the tabernacle and the Mishkan. But but this is different. And they talk in general, the whole nation's being counted, and when Egypt, and the first count take place in Egypt. Second count take count in the wilderness with the descent of the golden calf, and this is actually the third count that we're talking about at this point in time, and it's going to be for a different and unique purpose. And they don't say who was in charge of the county the first couple times. Only now we realize who going to be in charge of the county. But prior to that, we could speculate, we could talk, and you talk to your leaders and say, all right, well, what about that count? So now, also something unique in Hebrew, when you use Aharon, in this particular portion, Aaron's names had 5 dots over crowns. Some people say the crowns are dots, in Hebrew, in the scroll. Now, from my understanding, that it's only 32 letters. 32 letters. Not we got extra letters to the alphabet, but in 32 letters that you will find in the Tanakh, that you have dots over them, or crowns over them, in the scroll. And Aaron has 5 with Aharon in that. And it's to specify the uniqueness of Aharon, and that's the only, in that sense, which I will speak on it, a little bit later in my talk, hopefully I don't forget in my talk. All right, so now, after that, let's say, and with you there should be a man of every tribe everyone head of his father's house. And these are the names of the men that shall stand with you of Reuben. And I'm just going to read the 12 the names. They got Reuben. They talk. Eliezer. They got Simeon, Shlomuel. Son of Zurishaddai. They got um, of Yehudah. You got Nachshon. So what's interesting here is when they talk about who going to name who in what order. The order of the children that's given here is you read concerning the order of the children, you read about Leah's children being counted first. Then you read Rachel's children being counted next. Then you read the handmaids according to the age. Dan being the oldest of the handmaid children, and then you read, that Zilpah's children is counted in that particular order. So they're being counted, and but the thing is that Moses, and Aaron gonna be with these particular heads of each tribe. Now, this is the first time we find that out to be that. And not only that, we find that the heads of each tribe that we're talking about, but also these are the ones that God had named as heads. So they ain't like, well, I know a little bit more than this next prince over here, so I should be the one. No, the Creator know who's bona fide blood by seed and blood pedigree, and the most qualified at that. So that's why it said Moses didn't pick him, Aaron didn't pick him. The Creator had picked each one of these individuals that we need, over the census to be not only that their status was the head of their particular tribe, because you had other princes in there, but they was the chief prince of their particular tribe, but they also was certified by the Creator of heaven and earth. So Moses didn't have to, say, well, I don't know which prince to take, because so and so, might, think this and that and the other. So this is something important to recognize. And then another thing that's very interesting in here, when you look at all the names of these different princes over these particular tribes, these names that they have here are names of all some kind of worship towards the Creator. Every last one of them got something to do with the Creator in some form or fashion. And now Nachshon, strangely as enough, and we would say, well, it means, it's come from the word Nakash, is the serpent, but enchanting, but it also is metaphysically meaning that, it's one, that's able, suddenly not to, when you're more enchanting, you say less, you say less. You tend to have more of a humble spirit in that sense. And also, your very presence is enough to actually get things done and demand a certain type of protocol. So, and that's but then when you're dealing with a spiritual level, then that's one of the essence. That's when you think about Nachshon, there's a lot of stuff spoken about Nachshon and rabbinic teachings, but I don't want to focus on that now. But when you look at the other names, Eliezer, my God, my power, my God, is my rock, it's a rock, Shumiel, one that has, my God, I have peace with my God, stuff like that. Zurishaddai, the Almighty is my rock. So, when we look at all these different names, my God, my God gives, and my God is a gift, Nathaniel, so when you think of all the names of these guys here, you realize that it was all about praise of God and every one of their names in some fashion or form. So that's something that to pay attention about. All right. And then in the 16th verse, it said, these were the elect of the congregation, the princes of the tribes of their fathers. They were the heads of the thousands of Israel. And Moses and Aaron took these men that are appointed out by name, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families, by their fathers' houses, according to the number of names, from 20 years old and upward, by their polls, and as the Lord commanded Moses, so did the number of them in the wilderness of Sinai. Now, what we also have here, which I neglected to speak on in the opening, all our laws didn't come from on the mountain. That's one of the things about all the laws. We had the laws that was given in Egypt, observing Rosh Chodesh. We have the laws of the actual Pesach given in Egypt. All right. So when we get at Mount Sinai, at the foot of Mount Sinai, we got God giving us what we refer to commonly as a set of Hadibro. Those 10 words, 10 matters. The 10 matters that he spoke that we didn't want to hear God anymore from. Excuse me, from that. So we learned that, and we got that law off the mountain directly. All right. Now, this law about the census, we already got the Mishkan operating, but where does this law come from? The tent of meeting, which is Moses' tent. Moses was getting this information from his tent, not from the Mishkan directly, because God can usually commune in Mishkan, in the Holy of Holies, and who's in the priest now? You got the Kohen Aharon, and his children, and he can't go in there anytime. So when God communicated with Moshe, he can this message in the wilderness, but from his tent. And I've been in the tent of meeting. That means called the tent of meeting because he meet with God there instead of climbing up the mountain as he did before, several times before. So I just want to bring that out as we go forward. So, and and to tell you about who's in charge. Now, what's important is that what we find here, and I'm not going to go through the numbers, is that each prince should know who belongs in his tribe, who's part of the tribe. But how they count? Well, we realize later on that they count by the half shekel. He don't go from door, pointing out this guy, this is Yoel, this is, Abishai, this is, Eob and stuff like that. They don't do that. The half shekel, after the shekel of the sanctuary, is part of the count, which we find later on. That's exactly what's done for the count. And also the half shekel does prove that you're not actually part. You're not the whole package, everything. That you only half a person. You need some other half to work with you to be whole. So that means that it's not you got everything you need to be a great individual before God. That it depends on your dealing with other people outside of yourself to help complete you so you can be great before your creator. So this is some of the lessons we learned from that. And you've got the census, I'm just going to highlight some of them, when we talk about, and it said go forth to war, able to go forth to war. Now, what's interesting is that when you talk about people that's able to go forth to war, you got to say, okay, I'll do it, what makes a person fit? And if I'm not fit, am I to be counted or not? And the purpose is to go forth to war. So should I not be counted since I can't go forth to war? these are something that's you might want to further discuss, because you could get a guy that's 30 years old, and he might be a dwarf, or he might have polio on one leg or whatever the case is, and can't run. Do that individual is that individual counted to go forth to war? Because the term is everybody that's 20 years and upward able to go forth to war. So when we just talking about that selection of group, a guy 19 might be far more robust than a guy 30, but as far as the creator is concerned, you're not ready yet. And yet in America, you could join the service at 18, and then also sometimes with your parents' permission, you could join as young as 17. But yet in some states in America, though, you could have a gun, go out to wage war, and slay the enemy. When you come back to your particular states, in some states, you're not old enough to buy cigarettes or alcohol. Now that's really ironic, really ironic, but that's the law in some states. Yet you're a military individual. You can have a gun and everything, put your life on the line, able to die for the country, but and to safeguard people. So the creator's like different. I'm not counting you because you're 19. I'm only counting you because you're 20 and better. That's the only time I'm gonna count you, 20 or better. That's the difference in reference to the way the creator deal with things. All right, so now I'm just gonna highlight some of the things. Reuben, 46,500, and then he had, the tribe of Simeon, 59,300, that tribe of Gad, 45,650. Then you get the tribe of Yehudah, 74,600. All right. Let me see. Yeah. Yeah. And then you have other people, Issachar, 54,000. So when you sum it up and you got the numbers of all these individuals, the total come up for all of them 603,550. That's the total of men that's able to go to war. So a lot of times we read round numbers, and a lot of people have an issue that God don't use round numbers. It's a 600,000, that's all it is. No, they use round numbers. And we're going to find out that this is important. So if you want to do certain facts checks, you can add them up yourself, but you come up with 603,550 men able to go forth to the war. But we just a lot of times say 600,000 men of war. So when we and that's all 12 tribes. Now, what you also find out is that each prince was to make sure his tribe is counted properly, but he also worked with the other princes to help them count their people. So this is not an overnight thing. This is, takes some time for them to do those particular process. And what is interesting is that when we talk about the jurisdiction, the Prince of Yehudah originally would just only have jurisdiction and concerns about Yehudah, but no concerns about, Issachar or Zebulon. What it's showing is that though you're a prince of this particular tribe, and there's other guys a prince of this particular tribe, you all collectively work together to guide the nation. So you can't say, one tribe can't say I'm handling the nation. It's a collective organization to be able to say this is how the nation should move and guide and be guided. So this is the first time that you're the prince of their tribe. Now you're respected and got to say so and help with another brother or another brother or family of the other tribes. So that this is unique in that sense. So your jurisdiction overlaps in guidance, with the other princes of the tribe when the nation need to move as a whole. And you recognize and respect it as such. Such as, United States, when you talk about, the senators for each state, representing that, all right, which is different than pretty much the governor of the state. All right, so we'll move on just a little bit. I want to highlight a couple more points in here. All right, and then why this count now, and why the count individual, and why the count is unique. One of the things about this count being individual and unique is that I need to set y'all in array. Now, you came out of Egypt, said by your armies, but not at, but not really in a real great standard. So now I need to set y'all in position. We just can't have Yehudites, and say Ephraimites, mixed up here and jumbled up with Danites and all that stuff, and we moving about because one, you won't have no structure to be able to communicate effectively. So, and not only that, the thing is that you can relate more closer to those that's in your family than those that's outside your family. At the Mishkan, we had the Mishkan operating. We had the guys making a dedication of the Mishkan on that particular date. We had the Pesach service, which, they observed Pesach, that particular year, that second year. And we know that that particular season of enjoyment goes 7 days. So with a little time out, God gave him a little break in between with Shabbat and different things. So now we need formation. We need structure. And since the tabernacle is operating, I'm going to tell you where each camp going to be residing at. So that's what it's about. Because this count is based on where should I position the tribes of Israel according to their, characteristics and qualities in the most effective spot that they be great at. So now that's the purpose of this particular count, not only just to go to war, but to be able to be in position to defend the sanctity of the Mishkan, the dwelling place that we want to have God, at this particular time, to have his presence be amongst us. So, and where he commune for us. So we need to set him up in an effective position. Now, mind you, this ain't property. This is marching, assembly, and responsibility in your locale collectively. So that's one of the things about this particular count that's important here. And you have one camp that is the lead, one tribe that happened to be the leader, leading the standard for other tribes, even though each one had their identification and banner and flag. There's a lot of rabbinic teachings concerning that, but I'm not going to go into that in this particular talk. But there's a lot of rabbinic, teachings about why they got flags, why they wanted their banners and standards, and what was on each standard. One of the things I will share that they say that the flag's colors for each particular tribe had actually, the color of the stone that's on the breastplate. Now, somebody would have to share, Ephraim and Nasik would have to share that, which would be the Shoshan, the onyx stone. And also, we know the tribe of Levi, their stone was on the breastplate, but they're not part of this individual count. So that just bring some things out, when you listen to certain rabbinic literature, you got to say, okay, I can see where you're coming from, but then I got these little nuances to discuss. All right, so now we know that 3 tribes went to the east, Judah being the head tribe in the east. 3 tribes to the south. We know that Reuben is the head tribe for the south. 3 tribes to the west. We know that Ephraim, was in the west, and the head tribe in the west. And then up north, you had Dan, the head tribe of the north. So, and and they all positioned around that, and their position is not what they chose. This is the position that the Creator had chose for them, and I'm just going to read the 2nd chapter just a little bit. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying unto Aaron, and spoken to Moses, spoken to Moses and unto Aaron, saying, the children of Israel shall pitch by their fathers' houses, every man with his own standard, according to the ensigns, a good ways off shall they pitch round about the tent of meeting. And now these that pitch on the east side, towards the sun rising, shall be they of the standard of the camp of Yehudah. So we know that this came from the Creator, all right? And then they tell you who's next to him, and who's on this side and who's on that side. But so this is what the Creator says, and tell you how many people are there. Now, that's the assembly, and then it goes into the third. I want to skip over to the 3rd chapter. So, but the flags and everything like that. So Reuben couldn't argue with Yehudah about why you over in the east, and then also, as we're going to find out later on, that the Levites also had their particular standard and where they was positioned. But I'm going to go just skip on down to the 3rd chapter right quick. And it says, but before I get to the 3rd chapter, I just want to read the end, towards the end of the 32nd verse, going to the end of the 2nd chapter. And these are they that were numbered of the children of Israel by their fathers' houses, all that were numbered of the camps according to their hosts was 600,350. But the Levites were not numbered among the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses. Thus did the children of Israel according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So they pitched by their standards, and so they set forward, each one according to his families and according to his father's house. So that means, whereas y'all might have been all on this side, and to mingle, and over that side, no, now this is where you're going. Anytime the tabernacle is resting, this is where all y'all from the tribe of Yehudah and going to be. This is where all y'all from the tribe of Reuben going to be. This is where all y'all from the tribe of Ephraim going to be. All y'all from the tribe of Dan. This is where y'all going to be. You're going to stay right here. Well, why I want to be up north? I want to go be in the southern part. That's not your call. That's what the Creator said. Now in the 3rd chapter it says, now these are the generations of Aaron and Moses, in the day that the Lord spoken with Moses in Mount Sinai. All right. Now, what's interesting here? Now, these are the generation of Aaron and Moses. Why is it that Aaron's name, is mentioned for Moshe? He is the older brother. He is the older brother in that sense. And when they said the generation of Moses and Aaron, Aaron and Moses, then what follows is this, and these are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab, the firstborn, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. Now, and these are the names of the sons of Aaron, the priests, that were anointed, whom he consecrated to minister in the priest's office. And Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered strange fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. And Eleazar and Ithamar ministered in the priest's office in the presence of Aaron, their father. Sometimes they say the 5 dots represent all 5 of Aaron and his 4 sons, even though they died. Over the name. That's one explanation. But there's a lot of other explanations reference to that. Because which I'll hint on later on as in my talk. But what we find out here is that when he talked, what's interesting, the generation of Moses, why didn't mention Gershon, and Eleazar, Moses' sons. We know that he has sons. And they only talk about, the generations of Aaron and Moses, and let you know that Aaron not only was the right hand of Moses, but he also performed some of the plagues in Egypt first. Even when he stood before Pharaoh and the magicians, Aaron was the one that threw down the staff. Moses talked to Aaron, talked to Pharaoh, but talking to Aaron, and Aaron exemplified and expressed what Moses was speaking to Pharaoh, where Pharaoh positively understood. Aaron was the one that struck the Nile. Aaron was the one that had the frogs come forth. Aaron was the one that struck the land and brought forth lights. So Aaron also was the firstborn of his father. So Aaron, Aaron was complementary to Moshe. Not only a right-hand man, but he also had some uniqueness of his own as an individual. Henceforth, he is considered, was made a high priest, in that area. And you notice that a lot of times people always have problems with the firstborn being selected. Though Moses was able to get close to God, Aaron basically had a real firstborn portion, that's transferred to his descendants forever. So as we go further in it, in the 3rd chapter, 5th verse, it said, "And the Lord spoken to Moses, saying, Bring the tribe of Levi near, and set them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister unto him, and they shall keep his charge and the charge of the whole congregation before the tent of meeting to do the service of the tabernacle." All right. And they're going to tell you about the service that they actually do. All right. And then the 9th verse, they're going to say, "And thou shalt give the Levites unto Aaron and to his sons. They are wholly given unto him given to him from the children of Israel. And thou shalt appoint Aaron and his sons, that they may keep their priesthood, and the common man that draweth nigh shall be put to death." So now, is Aaron considered a Levite, or he considered separate from a Levite? Now we know that he's the descendant of Amram. We know that Amram, is a descendant of Levi, and we know all the descendants of Levi was called Leviim. But now, at this stage in time, Aaron and his sons are considered by the Creator separate from the Levites. Hence, when we get ready to count the children of Levi, they are not going to be part of that count. When Moshe will be part of that count, but Aaron and his sons, will not be part of the count, when you get to that area. And, people further discuss these different things here. And then it goes on and says, in 11th verse, "And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, And I, behold, and have taken the Levites from among the children of Israel, instead of every firstborn that opened in the womb among the children of Israel, and the Levites shall be mine, for all the firstborn are mine, On the day that I smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I hallowed unto me all the firstborn in Israel, both man and beast, mine they shall be. I am the Lord. So if you're firstborn, you know, and there's always, little nuances that they talk about, how you be a firstborn, but how how you actually birth come into the world. And in this case, it's talking about males later, male men as opposed to female. But with the animals, it's a different story. But usually when it comes to the human beings, they talk about the males instead of the females. Now, you have a lot of discussion and relationship about why males as opposed to females. Because in some families, a female such as Miriam is not only a firstborn, of her father, but she also the firstborn of her mama. And Aaron comes after her, and Moses come after him. So I know a lot of times I say Aaron's the firstborn, but basically he's older than Moses. So I make that correction, in that sense. He's older than Moses, but Miriam older than both of them, in that sense. She's the big sister. All right. So let me continue on. And they're talking about when we're talking about with the position of the Levites. Now we know why when Levites was chosen and why they given unto Aharon as assistants. So that means that they serve Aharon. Aharon served the people in serving God. That's the protocol of jobs. The Levites are under the Kohanim, and the Kohanim serve the people, and and represent the people in serving God. So that's the job there. And now we're going to talk about the census of children of Levi, and it goes into the census. And the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto the in the wilderness of Sinai, saying, number the children of Levi by their father's house, by their families, every male from a month old and upward shall thou number them. And Moses numbered them according to the word of the Lord, as he was commanded. And these were the names of the sons of Levi by their names. Excuse me. And these were the sons of Levi by their names: Gershon and Kohath and Merari. And these are the names of the sons of Gershon by their families: Libnah and Shimei. And the sons of Kohath by their families: Amram, Issachar, Hebron, and Uziel. And the sons of Merari by their families: Machli and Mushi. These are the families of the Levites according to their fathers' houses. And then it goes on to break down the duties what the Gershonites supposed to do. All right, but it says I'm just going to read one of them. The families of of Gershon was the family of the Libnites, and the families of the Shimeites, and these are the families of Gershonites. Those that were numbered of them according to their numbers of all the males from a month old and upward, even those that were numbered of them were 7,500. And the family of the Gershonites were to pitch behind the tabernacle westward. The prince of the families of the prince of the fathers of the house of the Gershonites, being Elisah, the son of Lael, and the charge of the sons of Gershon, and the tent of meeting, the tabernacle, and the tent, and the coverings thereof, and the screens for the doors of the tent of meeting, and the hangings of the courts, and the screens for the doors of the court, which is by the tabernacle, and by the altar round about, and the cords of it, even whatsoever pertaineth to the service thereof. All right. So now what we find is, and we got, the numbers that is given for each one of those particular people when they number it later on. And it goes on to talk about what the Kohathites do. The Kohathites, the Gershon is senior parts, older son of Levi. And then you got the Kohathite, and that's the one Moses and Aaron from that particular branch. And it says, and a Kohath was the family of the Aramanites, and the family of the Ishaites, and the family of the Hebronites, and the family of the Uzzites. These are the family of the Kohathites according to the number of all the males from a month old and upward, 8,600 keepers of charge of the sanctuary. All right. And they're going to tell you about their job. All right. Where the and where they located. Picture on the south side of the tabernacle, the prince of the father's house of the family of the Kohathites were Elishphan, the son of Uzziel, and their charge, the ark, and the table, and the candlestick, and the altars, and the vessels of the sanctuary, wherewith the priests ministered, and the screen, and all that pertained to the service thereof. Eleazar, the son of Aharon, the priest, being Nasir, prince of the princes, Nasir, as you would say, of the Levites, and having the oversight of them that keep the charge of the sanctuary. So, since their jobs, the Kohathites are going to deal with the stuff that's that priests work with. That means the altar, both altars actually. You got the altar of incense. You got the Ark of the Covenant that's inside the Holy of Holies. You got the menorah. You got the table of showbread, and also you got the brazen altar that's in the courtyard, along with all the other vessels and utensils that they use in service. That's what they're supposed to deal with and carry when they move out. So that means that nobody else could do that. And theirs is the most deadliest job because they're supposed to carry what they can't see, and it's insulated several times. So they can't even touch the actual object, flesh on the object. They had to have it insulated with cloths and 3 tiers of fabric. And then what's interesting, they call the wrappings and the material that you put over the particular things like the Ark of the Covenant and stuff like that. They call that begadim, a beged. Beged is what we wear as clothes. That's what human beings wear. You usually don't say a beged, for objects. You just put a covering over it, But in this sacred stuff like this, it gives you, a certain psychic of a human emotional expression within it by using the term beged. So I just want to speak on a couple more things before I come to a conclusion on this. So now, in the 40th verse, all right, and the 40th verse says, "And the Lord said unto Moses, number all the firstborn males of the children of Israel from a month old and upward." I mean, from a month old up. That means that we ain't talking about us military men, all right, from a month old and upward, and take the number of their names. And thou shalt take the Levites for me, even the Lord, instead of all the firstborn of among the children of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites instead of all the firstlings among the cattle of the children of Israel. And Moses numbered as the Lord commanded him, and all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and all the firstborn males according to the number of the names from a month old and upward of those that were numbered of them were 22,203 score with 13, which is 22,273. The Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, take the Levites instead of all the firstborn among the children of Israel, and the cattle of the Levites instead of their cattle, and the Levites shall be mine, even the Lord's. And as for the redemption of the 203 score and 13 of the firstborn of the children of Israel that are over and above the number of the Levites, thou shalt take 5 shekels apiece by pole. After the shekel of the sanctuary shalt thou take them. The shekel is 20 gerahs, and thou shalt give the money wherewith they that remain over of them are redeemed unto Aaron and unto his sons. And Moses took the redemption money from them that were over and above them that were redeemed by the Levites. From the firstborn of the children of Israel took he the money 8,303 score and 5 shekels after the shekel of the sanctuary. And Moses gave the redemption money unto Aaron and unto his sons according to the word of the Lord, as the Lord has commanded Moses. Now, what's interesting here is that, and now I'm just going to highlight and pretty much almost conclude, is that when we count the tribe of Levi, I mean, by the numbers that's actually given in the text, I didn't go through every one of the numbers, but for the sake of time. But when you actually count the numbers in the text, you're going to come up with 22,300 Levites from month on upward. Now, when you talk about, redeeming the firstborn, of Israel, only similarity to the firstborn of Israel, is also a month old and upward. And why a month old? They figure if a child made a month, after he was born, he made a Rosh Chodesh cycle, then the child most likely going to live, a normal life. So that's why if a child don't make the month old, usually the child would die, but then, maybe, God forbid, a day stillborn or a week, whatever, maybe sickness or whatever the case is, Dawi child, that he had, an unseemly setting didn't last that long. So usually a month old, once a child's a month old, then you say, okay, pretty much you're gonna live you're gonna survive and live a normal life. Even if they have abnormalities in their body, they're gonna pretty much live life. So that is and equal to the month old of the firstborn. That's being that you had to be redeemed. And the Levites can redeem, because Levites is the only tribe that's never redeemed because they belong to the Lord. So if you are, from the tribe of Levi, by seed and blood, then your job is always with, serving God, in that area there, as we all should be, but you in a unique thing, helping the Kohen do his job and helping us, knowing how we should, act spiritually, and we want to get close to God as well, Assistant Cohen in that area. So when we think about the actual count of 22,300 Levites, which is the smallest tribe at the time, and yet they only said they had 22,000, and then you got 273 people. Why, if we were to count the 300 Levites that's not enumerated here, then we would say that's more than enough to redeem the firstborn of Israel. But one commentary, I said this in the past, that that if a Levite is a firstborn, then it wouldn't look good. Well, it's obvious that the Creator want a firstborn to redeem another firstborn. Just a regular Levite. And so also what we learned also that redemption of firstborn became the standard of 5 shekels of silver. If you have a firstborn male, normal redemption money was 5 shekels of silver. Why they don't, take into account the females in that area? That's something, you got to talk to, the Creator about that. And maybe he can enlighten you in some fashion or form. So, but anyway, we know that, 300 of the Levites wasn't counted when it came to the redemption. And one of the reasons they give is that they actually was firstborns themselves. All right, and then as we get ready to conclude, I just want to go into how we move out, and this is important because we structured by armies as to how we should move out. And the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron saying, basically we have another count too. I just want to bring out about the Levites are counted several times in this particular portion. And they counted from a month old, they counted 25, to the 50, and they counted also, they counted several times, from a month old upward, and then they counted from 25 to 50. All right. Then they counted individual tribes, sections of families of the Levites. All right. And then not only they counted individual sections of the Levites, they counted collectively, in that sense, and so we have several counts. But then they counted from 30 to 50. So the Levites actually counted basically 5 times within in this particular area for different reasons. Now, when they say 25 to 50, and then they talk about reservists and 30 to 50, well, probation period for the Levites to learn their job. A priest, you're born a priest, and so that so you're gonna be picking up your job regular because that's gonna be a family thing as well. But for the Levites to be able to say, okay, I'm a Levite, I know what I'm supposed to do, but how do I do it? Do I do it safely? Do I do it, carelessly? Am I fit enough to do the job? So all that is, is taken into account as the probational period, and then retire at 50. Most people think, you got to be an elder at 70, and then, you're promised 70 by reason of the, strength. You do 80. So that means that you only could be recognized as an elder. I mean, by that standard, by the standards some people come up with. Not, but I'm saying some standards that you only recognize as an elder when you become 70, when you only promise 10 by reason of strength, you make 80. And that don't seem very, very insightful or enlightened, really intelligent. When the Levite retired at 50 from labor's work, he acts in the capacity of supervision. People didn't live that long, so if your time limit is 70, and they say you ain't gonna be recognized as elder till you're 70, then you got one foot in the grave and the other one on a banana peel. So what good's being an elder then? When most of our kings and stuff like that then make 60. Some of them, they make 50. And you could tell by when they hit the throne how long they reign, and they die. And they have the best medical coverages. So this is one of the things that we got to focus on, that, we don't really have a word for retirement in Hebrew. They made up one now, but really they don't have a word for retirement, because you're supposed to always be accessible to give some kind of insight and wisdom in there. And in the very end, it speaks on, in reference to the Kohathites. I just want to finish off with the Kohathites. That, and the Lord spoke to Moses in the 17th verse of the 4th chapter. And the Lord spoke unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Cut ye not off the tribe of the families of the Kohathites from among the Levites, but thus do unto them that they may live and not die. When they approach unto the most holy things, Aaron and his son should go in and appoint every one to his service, to his burden, but they shall not go in to see the holy things as they are being covered, lest they die. So the only time, now imagine, one of the things I like to bring out in conclusion in that particular portion is that when they covered it, cover all the stuff in it, Eleazar is responsible. I got to cover this thing with the several things that's mentioned already in the early part of that particular chapter. 3 layers of stuff is being dropped over that stuff. So it's really insulated and covered. And the thing is that the staves that got to go in certain things, the ark stave stays in the ark stave. All right. And when you get to the table, the table, and you get to the golden altar and the brazen altar, you put them staves in, but the ark stave stays in there. And then also that fire, they got to make sure that's transport. That's part of the Kohathites' job. And when they're moving the table, the bread, it got to stay there on the table for a week. So this might be 3 days already into that showbread. That showbread still got to be covered up on that and everything in place when they move out. So it's a real tedious and technical job because even the showbread is prohibited from them, while still in that process. So they Eleazar had a major job, and they cautioned him, and the Creator said, everybody else's job, the Gershonites, the Merarites, their job is not really that, death defying, when they carry their stuff, and they got wagons and stuff like that. And what's strange is that the menorah don't have any staves, so and they got to carry that. So there's no nothing going to that. And then all those in the vessel say, well, you got to be fit enough to carry those particular items and objects. So it's a major job. And then the last thing I want to speak on in reference to that is that when they move out the camps, and when they move out, this is how they will move. First, the inner part will be taken out. That means all the holy vessels, in the tabernacle will be covered and taken out. Then it would be dismantled. So the Kohathites could only go inside those particular sanctuary, into the Holy of Holies and all the other stuff, only after everything is covered up. Ain't that something? So now we normally read where the Kohen goes in there once a year into the Holy of Holies. But if they got to move today and then they move it a few days later, the Kohathites go in there, but they can't see what's going on. They go into the same thing because they don't have the same sanctity as it has once the cloud of glory had moved and said, I'm going over here. So this is something to pay attention to, that normally when they're not allowed to step foot in, they had to go inside now to grab the objects. So that's a unique thing, and then after that, the house is dismantled. And then, so when they march, the Gershonites, and the Merarites, march a certain formation, and so you would have the people of, the Gershonites and Merari, whatever they were mentioned. The first camp, Yehudah would pull out first, and then after Yehudah pull out, then you would have actually the Gershonites and Merari pull out. Between the first and the second camp, and then which is between Yehudah and Reuben, for Reuben move out. Then when Reuben move out, then the Kohathites will move between the second and the third camp, between the banner of Reuben and the banner of Ephraim, and then after they move out, then you have the Danites covering the rear. So that's protection there. And not only that, the thing is that when Yehudah gets to where the tabernacle needs to rest, then you have actually that it's a symbol waiting for the holy items to go in. Whereas we read about the holy items, being set, and then the place being built around it. So it's just the opposite now, where the place is being set up and built up, and the holy items is coming to a spot already prepared for it. And that's one of the things. And one of the things is interesting. When one of the brothers I was talking, brought up about the manna, and manna itself, one of the things about the manna is interesting enough. I understand. I speak on it then. I said it's another topic, but one of the things is that manna that was saved, for perpetual, it already was saved. We don't read exactly, where Moses kept it, most likely in his own tent for a while before the Mishkan, was built. But it was already saved from the day one when it was collected for the children of Israel to see in the future. And if it's collected for the children of Israel to see what God fed them, then it's not an off-limits thing like the rest of the stuff that we consider. Because how am I going to see something in the future that what God fed us if I'm not allowed to go in there? And it can't come to me. So these are some of the things you can discuss. I hope I gave you some things to talk about, food for thought, and any mistakes been my own. And I wish everybody not only a great cog for Shavuot. I'm sure that after this year, I hope y'all enjoy yourself during Shavuot, and we try to do better, all of us together in the future. And may God bless every one of us. And I greet you. I will just say, enjoy yourself on Shavuot. And early Shabbat Shalom, Shalom Aleichem.
Hallelujah. Torah about Nasik. Thanking the Most High God for your life and praying that the Most High God will continue to bless each and every one of us. Shalom, shalom, and everyone have a blessed feast, and everyone have a blessed Shabbat. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The CHOKMAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.